packaging. I think it's something quite important for, I guess, small craft businesses like this, where you're doing everything yourself and you're trying to make sure your product gets shipped as safely as possible. And for me personally, and I think many other businesses share the same idea, it's also being sustainable as well. So there's a lot of potential waste that can be produced through packaging, and that's something that I've been keeping in mind a lot, and also doing a bit of research and make sure I use materials that are a bit more sustainable. And today I just want to go through that in terms of what I've been using. We'll do a quick torture test at the very end, so I'll kick some boxes around, and just the costs of getting into a more sustainable practice. So here is all the stuff that I use. The setup's a bit different because usually I'll have it more at the front and I'll have it actually in a different desk. But for the video and for the camera, it makes more sense to spread it out this way. So let's start off with bubble wrapping, or wrapping, I guess the first layer of protection. Usually the old school way will be bubble wrap, and you'll just bubble wrap it, sticky tape it, and that's it. But that's a lot of plastic. And the alternative that I've found is this. There are many different variations of the same kind of idea. Basically, it's a craft paper that's got cut in it, where when you pull it, it spreads out into a honeycomb shape. So that gives a bit of air in between, instead of just flat paper, which won't have as much, I guess, cushioning. It also comes with a tissue paper on the inside, so that protects the surface from scratching. Ceramic shouldn't be scratched by craft paper, but it's a nice thing to have as well. And for more delicate products, maybe it's a good thing. So here are a couple of bowls that these are seconds. So these are stuff that I've been using at home. They didn't make it to the shop because for whatever reason, it could just be the sizing, it could be the shape. This was a prototype, for example. So I'm going to use this just as a test piece. So firstly, the RAM pack costs $99 for the whole roll. It gives about 130 meters. And I would say for each average, maybe a meter, about a meter worth of the wrap. So that would be about $1 per packaging. So it's a bit awkward because usually you just go towards yourself. But again, I'll start with this. Do like one layer, and sometimes I like to fold the inside in just to give an extra bit of cushioning. Do that, and then I'll wrap it again, folding in the edges. So that's about a meter, and sorry about the noise. I know it's going to be a bit crackly, this one. It's quite cushioned. It feels nice. I mean, it's definitely not as cushioned as like 4 or 5 layers of bubble wrap. But I think for the purposes of this material, I don't think it needs that much protection. It's more about cushioning the in-between of more than one piece. And, that's going to be more stuff that I will use to add extra cushioning for any impact or any drop. So I think this is pretty good. I could also tie it with a string, but for this, I won't bother. If I want this to be really compact, I can also run tape through it, which I've never tried before, so maybe I'll do it this time. So that's probably a good point to introduce this. So this is paper tape. Basically, it requires a specific dispenser because it's water activated. So for this one, for example, it's a manual one. It's cheapest one I could find, really. There are electronic ones where you set the predetermined length and you press a button, it comes out all nicely activated, and cut as well. So you just grab it and stick it on, and it's very easy. But for small scale operations like mine, I think I'm not going to spend $2,000 on a machine, so instead this is $235. So you just roll it out a little bit, and there's these little brushes around here that kind of activates the glue. Basically, the tank holds the water and then it gets absorbed up to the brushes. So as the tape comes through, it becomes nice and wet. Just scrunch this up. And it's not the most pretty thing, and I've actually never done it this way, so I'm just going to try it out. Anyway, so now we've got that done. Now for the boxes. I choose to do a double boxing just because this material itself doesn't give as much protection and the paper does a bit of compromise. And also I want to guarantee that there's no breakage. Often if I'm sending a smaller piece, like a little cup, then a box this size with enough void fill, I think it's fine. So sometimes I do save $1 by not using an extra box, but most of the time, especially when there's more than one thing in the package, I'll definitely double box. So these boxes cost about, I think all up I spent $100 on boxes, which gave me 100 boxes. So it works out about $2 per order, just because I'm double boxing. So yeah, it takes a bit of practice with the paper tape because it works a little bit differently to your regular tape. And one note about paper tape is that you have to make sure that, you know, the whole thing is wet for the glue to activate. Sometimes if you get a corner that didn't get enough water, it won't do anything. It's not going to be wet enough. So sometimes I just like to run my finger through the brush. It gives you a bit of water if you need it. And about recycling tape. So these paper tape, as you can see, it's nothing but paper and just glue. There are two types of paper tape. There's ones like these and there's reinforced one which has kind of string that runs through it in a grid, and that just gives it a bit more of strength. If you get the reinforced version of tape, it's actually not recyclable. So that's something to keep in mind, where the pure paper one is completely fine. With the inside box, I only do one tape. Sometimes for the outside box, if I'm doing this as a single box, then I'll also do 2 rows of tape along the edge just to keep the box secure, but for the interior box, it's fine. So here's the really nice bit. So for void fill, you can use stuff like peanuts and shredded paper and all that stuff. Packing peanuts is the definitely no-no if it's the plasticky polystyrene version. There's also the cornstarch version, which dissolves in water. And that's good because it doesn't create any landfill mass. You use so much of it, you actually need quite a lot of space to store them. So for me, this was a better solution. So these are basically a roll of craft paper. You might have seen it at cafes where they use it as a manual. They hang it on the wall, just pull it down, write the daily special on it. Relatively cheap. So these are $60 for the roll. And I think that gives me about 300 meters or something ridiculous. It's also a waste of time because there's so much of it. And I think I use, let's say, about 2 meters per packaging, or maybe a meter, and that's about 20 cents. So I'll cut a little slice off like this, and what I'll do, I'll scrunch it up. So there's machines that do this again, but with small business like this, everything's done by hand. Just again, I don't want to spend all that money on the machine. I don't have the space for a machine. So maybe later on, if I'm shipping 100 packages every week, sure. But for now, this is fine. So just a bit of noise warning. Now, so I like to scrunch it up kind of like this, and then what I'll do is I'll roll it into a circle. So this gives you kind of like a padding, which it's actually pretty good. So I'll put one roll of this just down the bottom. So make sure I don't crush it too much with my actual product. So this is a good example of showing the decision between single boxing and double boxing. So for something like this, which is tight in the box, my interior wrap kind of goes straight to the edge along the side. If I ship this as a single box, any impact on the side of the box goes straight onto ceramics. Even though it's wrapped in the paper, it's still not, you know, there's not much cushioning. There's probably about like a centimeter. Like it's not going to move around. That's not the issue. It's more just impact and any like puncture and things like that. So for stuff that fits this tightly, I'll definitely have an exterior box just to add a bit of extra safety. So now there's a bit of gaps in between in the corners. So I might just add a little bit more paper, and I'm also going to do one on top. All right, so at this stage, I have some custom printed kind of thank you cards. But for this, I won't put any in it just because these are printed at home and the ink is a little bit expensive, so I'm quite precious about them. Let's seal this up. All right, so that's the interior box done. There's no movement in it, which is good. And I just like to do a little stamp just for a bit of branding. I actually forgot how much this costs. I think these are like $30 each. So I've got two. I've got one with the logo and one with the business name. I think that just adds a little bit of something, which is nice. Alright, so that's the interior box done. Let's put that aside. Now for the second boxing. So with the second box, I like it to be at least a couple of centimeters bigger. So the small box is about 16 centimeters and this is about 20. So they're both squares. So that gives about 4 centimeters of gap. So that means 2 centimeters on each side, on all sides. So like I was mentioning before, with the exterior box, I'll do a bit of extra tape. So kind of just on the corners like this. And that just makes sure that those kind of flap doesn't open up as easily. Just a bit of extra strength, especially for crushing purposes. If it gets squished, sometimes it bursts out the seams. Alright. So that's nice and secure. And now, same thing, we're gonna make a bunch of paper paddings. Alright, just like that. I find one layer more than sufficient. Usually if I put one layer, it's about that tall, so about 1 centimeter, 2 centimeters. If I pack too much on the bottom, it's gonna be hard to close the box later on because I also have padding up above as well. So well, I might as well just get all this done. So usually I use one on each side. So 1, 2, and then 4. So that's, oh, quite a lot. So that's actually not a bad way to do it. Maybe next time I'll pre-wrinkle a bunch of these and I can just grab it and do it. Because before, when I was doing my first launch shipping, each time I'll go back and cut a slice. So maybe it's good to like just cut out 10, 20 slices at once. That's probably a more efficient way to do it. So now we've got our boxes ready to go. Just gonna put this straight down the middle. Make sure there's enough gaps along the side. So see, even with just one layer, there's not a whole lot of space left above, which is good. You want it to be a bit of a tight fit and have a bit of compression, but not too much that it's going to burst out. I like to match where the seam is on the top as well. So this way, you know, because you've got all this tape on one side, might as well keep one side relatively clear. You still have a bit of this corner, but and since this is a box that I've done testing before for the stamps, it's already pre-stamped, so I won't bother stamping it again. Also, I'm not shipping this actual thing. I don't feel any movement inside. So I would say that's pretty good. So now, yeah, let's just quickly go through the costs again because I was a bit sparse. So $99 for that, 60, so that's 160. That's about $2.30. And then the box is about $1 each. The roller tape was $11 per roll, but I had to get 6 because it only comes in packs of 6, which means it was about $70. So all up, it came to $599, or let's just call it $600 for everything in terms of shipping. And this doesn't include printing and all that stuff in terms of the invoices and the shipping labels. If you include the stamps, it's probably closer to $700. So it's a fair amount, but a lot of these things, it's going to last me a while. So for example, there's still a lot on these rolls, so I can definitely use them for at least another, I would say 60, 70 orders at least. So that's quite a few. And then these paper, there's hundreds of meters of it, so that's also going to be quite long lasting. The tape dispenser, it's really well built, even though, you know, it's just a tape dispenser. Like, why is it so expensive? But it is all solid steel. It's all powder coated, so there's not going to be any rusting issue. So I don't see anything ever going wrong with this. And if it does, it's all quite easily repairable. You can get little bits and pieces to fix certain items, and you just need to maintain it. I'll just buy this once and that's it for the rest of my career, really. But all in all, so this whole package is now recyclable. So once your customer gets it, take out the product, they can either reuse a lot of this, which if they do a bit of shipping, it's good to have. If not, this whole thing can just go straight into the curbside recycling bin, gets boiled down, and It's way better than having a ton of plastic. Imagine if all that craft paper I used were plastic, and then the wrap I used was also bubble wrap. That's about a decent ball of hard plastic that's not going to go anywhere. And you ship 10 of that a week, and suddenly you're producing a lot of waste. Yeah, it's hard for me to imagine doing that and being able to be okay with it. But that's just my personal opinion. So if you're looking into packaging, definitely look into the sustainable option if you can. So all our products are shipped with either recyclable or recycled material. All right, so now let's go test this out. It's actually quite hard to find a place where I can throw a box around being in the city. My backyard's not big enough and there's no hard surface to really test it out. So luckily there is, I mean, it's kind of unlucky for the pub because during COVID they're shut, so their car park is actually absolutely empty, so I don't have to worry about hitting a random car with a cardboard box. Hopefully they get to open again soon, but in the meantime, let's test out how well this box holds up. All right, so we still have a mask mandate, even though there's no one around me, but you know, wear a mask when you go out. So it turns out the pub is actually opening up right now, so hopefully I don't get kicked out, but we'll see. Yeah, so I'm just gonna do a bunch of drops and see what happens. Alright, so that last one was quite high. It was like a good 10, 15 meters, maybe not that high. But, so what I have noticed is, it has loosened up a bit. Like if I shake it, I can feel the paddings are not holding it as tight in. But given how big that impact was, I mean, how often is that gonna happen? Like normally, drops like this, yeah. So I think I'll do one more big throw and go home. Alright, so that's definitely loosened up the inside, but I don't think anything's broken. So let's go home, open it up and check it out. Alright, moment of truth. Interestingly enough, it looks like most of the impact was on one corner. Alright, so it looks like, yep, there's still a bit of padding. So this definitely flattened a bit. I don't know if it's from the impact. I just realized I left my ink open to dry. So yeah, it's definitely flattened a bit, but it still had a bit of cushioning. So yeah, so everything is still sitting quite well in its spot. So yeah, you can see how all the packaging is still there. Everything's still in place. Interior box. Oh, so the movement is in here. So I think what happens, I didn't pack this inside enough. That's worrying. But the box itself looks pretty good. There's no real dent. So I don't think it took much of an impact. I think it just loosened up a bit. I wasn't gonna pack the void as much as I should have. And I think that's where it's moved around a bit. All right, so the first bowl is completely fine. And the second bowl is also completely fine. I would call that a success. Just for a bit of, I guess, perspective, I just want to see how much packaging I've ended up using. Just over a meter worth of this Rampack kind of crumble paper. We used about 1, 2. So usually when I pull out about that much. So I say 3 would be a meter. So that's 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's about 2 meters. Let's say 3 meters, which is, I think it was 20 cents per meter. So let's just say 60 cents. $1. These two boxes, I think this is about 80 cents. This is about $1. 60 cents, $1. $1.60 plus 70 cents is $2.30 plus another $1. So about $4.30. Okay, so about, yeah. So it seems like a lot of material, but again, these are all recyclable, which is great. You can reuse this, and I'm definitely going to reuse all this. Yeah, I'll pack this up later. So with that in mind, I'm pretty confident that my stuff should arrive quite safely. It's funny that I've done this test after I've shipped all my first launch sales. Hopefully you found this helpful. Maybe you're selling your own stuff, you're just looking for packaging ideas in general. This is definitely more of a business kind of thing, because if you're just shipping things to your friends and family, I don't think you'll be buying all these things. But just an idea, double boxing is definitely worth it in my mind. Thanks for watching. If you're interested in the ceramics kind of things, definitely check out my Instagram. There's a lot of finished products and things like that. Yeah, so all in all, I think that worked out pretty well. So yeah, thanks for watching.